still laughing. All right.
So good.
All right, here we go. I'm just gonna, like I said, I've just been going back a few days just because I didn't want to go like a whole week. Come on, we only have an hour and a half on the show. So September 22nd, 1987, that was the infamous NFL player strike. Right, lasted 24 days. The players wanted free agency to be part of the agreement that the NFLPA had with the NFL owners. They had technically had free agency for almost a decade at that point, but a clause in the contract known as the Rozelle Rule stated that if a player is signed from a team, that the commissioner could review it and compensate the team losing that player with draft picks or players from his new team. As the 1987 season started, things were not going the way the players liked with the negotiations. So in week 4 of the season, they walked out and went on strike. And that is when the replacement players came out, right? They did a few movies about that. It was a disastrous experiment. The quality of play dropped. Fans were upset, livid. They're like, what is going on? Bring everybody back. And that's when star players started actually crossing the picket line. One of them, Joe Montana, he did cross the picket line. Mark Gastineau and Steve Largent, they started breaking breaks and crossed the picket line. So finally, when these stars crossed, this eventually led to all of the players going back in week 7. And guess what? Even though the stars weren't playing, those games still counted for their overall record. so even though the replacement players were the ones playing the first few weeks, it didn't matter. So it still counted for their record that season. Here we go. Fast forward a few years, September 22nd, 1991. Miami Dolphins head coach Don Shula, right, one of the greatest, won his 300th NFL game. Shula started his head coaching career in the NFL in 1963 with the Baltimore Colts, because that's what's their name at the time, right? He was only 33. He spent 7 seasons with them, tallied 71 wins in that position before leaving for warmer weather and going to Miami at that post for 26 seasons. Then Shula won one NFL championship in 1968, right? That's pre-Super Bowl. He won that with the Colts, the Baltimore Colts. And then won 2 Super Bowls at the helm of the Dolphins, including that undefeated Dolphins Super Bowl team of 1972. That was all Don Shula. Bobby's watching. I hope you enjoyed that little factoid. All right, moving on. Right, moving on to September 23rd. All right, here we go. September 23rd, 1984. The great Joe Montana just happened to had another fact about him. But Joe Montana actually missed his first start with the San Francisco 49ers in 49 games, which is kind of interesting, right? 49. Montana was unable to play due to his injury and was replaced by backup Matt Cavanaugh. But Matt Cavanaugh stepped in, threw for 252 yards and 3 touchdowns to lead the Niners to beat the Philly Eagles 21-9. So even though Joe Montana was out, next man up came up and won that game. All right, September 23rd, 2018. I'm sure Ms. Nicole will appreciate this, but this is when quarterback Drew Brees of NOLA surpassed Brett Favre's career record, right, of 6,300 pass completions, to become at that time the new record holder. We know who broke that one a few years later. A 17-yard touchdown. A 17-yard touchdown pass to favorite target at that time, Michael Thomas. That's when Michael Thomas was still out there killing it, right? Not only achieved the milestone, but at the time, Anthony, they broke the record when they beat Atlanta 43-37.
There you go.
All right. Nothing really happened.
Glad we could help.
Sorry. Nothing really happened on the 24th. I mean, it did, but I kind of covered it last year doing this segment, so I don't want to reach some repeats. But September 25th, 1939, Riddle introduces the shell helmet. It's the first helmet to use plastic shell. Yep, available to players. Its internal suspension trap here in 1939 was also adopted by General George S. Patton and the U.S. servicemen in WW2. So imagine that. So the football players and our soldiers were wearing plastic helmets. Yeah, at the same time.
How about that?
However, as what always happens, the only leagues that were actually using the plastic helmets were the college and high school games. It didn't get adopted into the NFL until the beginning of 1949 because, takes a while for that. Yeah. Because, football's always like, you got to tough it out. So it didn't. So the leather helmet era in the NFL still continued, even though there was a plastic one.
Wow.
And it was not until the 1949 season where they decided to use the plastic shells. Okay. So that's, and then here's a couple more facts, and then we're done. Moving on to September 26th, which is today, right? But going back to 1920, this was the first game featuring an American Professional Football Association team. Would be played on September 26th, 1920. So this is before. This is what would then become the NFL. It was the first professional game. September 26, 2020, as the Rock Island Independents beat up on their non-league opponent, the St. Paul Ideals, 48-0. Wow, that is a beat up. The APFA would change its name to National Football League in 1922. And our last fact, September 26th, fast forwarding some decades, 1977, the first overtime game is played by the Cleveland Browns franchise as they knock off the New England Patriots 30-27 in the extra period. The NFL adopted an overtime session in 1940 for divisional ties. And in 1946, it opened this rule to the championship games as well. However, it wasn't until 1974, though, when the league adopted the sudden death overtime for regular season games. And there you have it, this week, this day, in NFL history.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Delilah. Interesting side note, Tina, I don't know if you know this or not, but your coach, Sean Payton, was actually the scab quarterback for the Bears in that 87 season. So just an interesting side note on that one. But we're going to take a quick break, folks, and we'll be back in just a minute. What's that?
So you're saying he has inside knowledge?
I'm just saying. He was a scab once himself. I don't know. Yeah. There it is. No, I love it. Keep it coming, guys. We're having one of those nights. It's great.
Maybe he's the one that broke into your stadium this week.
And took the $100,000 worth of lawn equipment. Now I've told it was stolen from the parking lot. So who knows what the hell's going on over there at Soldier Field? I have no idea. It's a mess. It's a mess everywhere.